Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now here's your host, Roxanne Derhodge.
My new book, Return on Relationships, launching on June 10th, 2023, introduces the concept of return on relationships, a new metric for business growth. Grab a copy. Let me walk you through how to be a better leader and provide you with exclusive tools to guide you in building your authentic leadership legacy. You can find a link in the show notes to pre-order your copy today. Hope you enjoy. Our interview last week was so good that we decided to turn it into a two-part series. If you missed last week, you'll find the link in the show notes. It's not mandatory that you listen, but we want to make sure that you don't miss out on this amazing conversation. Hi, everyone. It's Roxanne Derhodge. Thanks for tuning in again this week. Today, I have a special colleague that I met through a friend in Cayman Islands, and it's a funny thing about connections. So hi, Treena, so glad you could be here with us today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
And Kim, if you're listening, this is happening because of you.
Yeah.
So Treena is in a field that I think most of us would find very intriguing. I'll just read a little bit about her bio and we'll jump right in because we're going to have such a fantastic conversation. Treena Reilkoff is a conflict management and resiliency specialist, international author, and the founder of TLR Solutions4Conflict Inc. As a Trauma Informed Mediator, psychological health and safety advisor, workplace fairness and restoration analyst, and the Resiliency Trainer and Facilitator, her passion is to support leaders, organizations, and businesses to become the architects of their conflict-resilient workplace.
And what's the easiest, cost-effective way to make improvements in a business that have sometimes no cost is listening to what the employees want and need. So I recently did a workplace assessment, and what was interesting was through the assessment, and it was not just the survey, but then there was individual confidential focus groups and interviews, was coming back to work, and it was a very high-risk environment, that what employees really needed was upper management, the CEO, the leaders, to just come out of their office and do check-ins, not do your regular routine of where you have to go do the walkthrough of different areas and check in. But they wanted that authentic connection of just come out and just check in and see how we're doing.
Something that basic. So what you're saying is that a lot of this got instituted by the government. Was this recently? How recently with the standards, with the psychological?
Yeah,
the
so the psychological health and safety national standards have been with Canada for 10 years. This year was their 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
But it's only recent because of mental health in the workplace and well-being that it's becoming recognized that there are psychosocial hazards, not just physical hazards, but psychosocial hazards.
Right. And like you're saying, if you're thinking, well, I think the solution is enough. And then you do what you think you need to do. And if you don't get a baseline from an assessment, let's say with this robbery, and what amazing information they would get, right? Because then this is an international company that has locations across Canada. And the impact is, let's say they do this not very well. And it's basically, I think it's a 24/7 service. And let's say you do it poorly on one location and that ripple effect. So other people working, say, the particular shift that your daughter was working, or even just working off shift, or maybe not even off shift, right? And you do it poorly, then what does that do, like you said, to retention, with people thinking, well, I like what I do, but I don't want to be held at gunpoint.
Yeah. And it's reputation too, right? Because
Right,
depending
absolutely.
on the business, the cost of reputation, you can't do a little formula for that if it's a major company. So it's like thinking, I always ask, so when you see your company in the news, do you want to see this company did not have anything proactively in place to
Mhm.
mitigate physical and psychological risks due to a robbery? Or do you want to see in the news, this
Mhm.
company is ahead of the game? They are taking the lead in creating psychological health and safety in the workplace and ensuring their staff, employees, clients are safe, feel welcome, and we look after our staff and our clients. Right? So it's
Absolutely.
that
But I mean,
reputation of,
yeah, that would just be a backdrop to that company versus all of a sudden, you're realizing
yeah.
and now we are our own media,
Oh
right? You
yeah.
have the interaction, somebody puts something on social and
Yeah.
it doesn't get addressed. That's like, wildfire where, and that reputation, like you said, then you're like calling in people to mitigate the reputation that
Yeah.
now it's kind of come out of the gate and now you got to
Yeah.
pull it back, right?
So yeah, and you do a cost comparison of, okay, the cost to bring somebody in to mitigate the reputation now that's been tarnished, or somebody also through that event put in a workplace violence complaint that now has to be investigated. So the cost of the investigation and what are the potential outcomes of it
Yeah.
versus being proactive. And should an event come, you've already recognized what are the psychosocial hazards, what are the risks, what is missing, what is working, and how to strengthen that. And then
Mhm.
should an investigation come or a lawsuit, you already have the liability covered saying we've done this implemented. Yes, the event happened. This is the action we took because we were aware of proactive measures we needed to mitigate the psychosocial risk.
Well, it's showing that you're being preemptive, right? Like,
Mhm.
unfortunately, and we know with 27, it's like emergency rooms
Yeah.
and first responders and 24/7 services, more than likely, you'd be getting concerns versus a 9 to 5 kind of, IT firm that opens up at 8 and leaves at 4.
Yeah.
Less likely you can have those types of things. So again, based on your sector, or even your size, like when I remember that this was a one case, and normally as the executive, I wouldn't get involved, but this was a scenario. Major transportation, won't say. And what had happened was, now I'm rarely, because of course in my role, sometimes I would have to be available for the West Coast, but not very often. So what happened was this employee was seeing one of the clinicians. Now I was arm's length. I would just find out once in a while what was going on. And there was a issue with anger management issue, right? Potentially. So, and of course we did assessments on, ongoing levels of assessments, and it was done. The clinicians did all their due diligence and whatever. And then it gets escalated to me because this particular person had threatened that they did not know what they were going to do when they saw their supervisor. And their shift was starting at 5 o'clock the next day, next morning. So hence I'm here and I'm escalating it up to the senior VP that I reported to. And we're like, okay, we got to do. So of course we did what was necessary, which is our due diligence. And we had that person taken care of before they entered the workplace. So it can get very, very technical, to your point. But if an employer does the things that you're suggesting, like let's say something does happen, then you're showing that you're saying, okay, we can't get rid of things happening. We're in a world with lots of things going on.
Yeah.
But if you ignore it, to your point, conflict avoidance, then that everything seems good, but what goes underground?
And that's where the historical unresolved conflict then starts potentially escalating to costs, to time, to internal conflict, again, to stress leave, disability leave, retention. right? In unions, then you've got grievances.
Right.
For the
Absolutely.
investigations, right? It's the unresolved conflict comes with a cost. So it's almost like we need a paradigm shift and just self-reflection of become conflict curious, because that's how we are proactive. That's how we put prevention in place to mitigate personal, professional, organizational, operational risk. But that's the resiliency of learning from the past experience. So if we look at the context of the robbery, it's like, hey, here's a series of events. This is what we did. So what was missing? What are the gaps, the pain points? And then how do we fill them in for that next time? Because there will be a next robbery. Hopefully not, but more than likely, whether it's the one store or a different store in the same chain, there's going to be another robbery. So how do we mitigate it? By reflecting on what we did right, what was needed or missing, and that's risk mitigation and resiliency, operational and organizational. And then the key is, if it's a chain or a branch or larger organization, how do we communicate and share that information that's accessible, not just to leadership, but what does the frontline employee need to do? And they have easy access, that they're educated on what is the safety net for them should something like this happen.
And also, one thing that we found was they would do the debriefings and the defusings, right? Yeah. So the defusings is within 24, the debriefings are within 72 to kind of, because most of us could go back relatively to normal functioning unless we have something really going on. What would happen with a lot of organizations, they wouldn't think of the people that were off or not on that shift. And what would happen is there would be rumor milling around the facts, right? And again, it's like that when you're a kid and you're playing broken telephone and times 100, and it would create a wildfire until you actually got people together within that 72 hours to completely discuss the facts and thinking who's off on leave, who's away on vacation, all those things, and making sure that everybody got the same communication. So that you're addressing, like you said, that wide net is who's kind of at the time of the event, at the time of the robbery, who was about to come in, who didn't come in, who did you send home, those types of things, because you're really thinking about, like, to your point, your daughter had some issues with bullying, let's say. So she learned some skill because her situation, but other people that maybe have never been through that, they might be coping completely differently, right?
Yeah. And that whole, like, the secondary or potential vicarious, the what if, right? Because we're all human again. You can't help going to the what if. We all did it with COVID at the beginning. What if, right?
Right.
So if you take in a business context, if you don't stop after a conflict, an incident, an adversity of something happening, stop and reflect on the learning and what worked, what didn't work, just associate the cost of the avoidance and the retention. So as you gave the example, right, the extended effect of everybody who wasn't there, how much time is spent, lost in production when they come back to work, and everybody's, whether you're online or in person or on the telephone, everybody's talking about it. There's probably a good 8 to 16 hours cumulative of the discussion of it because there's been no debriefing. So you take the individual salary for that day of every person involved, and then management and HR's organization of potential debriefing or the time off now, it could be tens of thousands of dollars because of the reactive measures rather than creating a baseline of proactive, preventative, organizational and operational resilient management.
And you know what, that brings a point. I'm thinking when listening to you, Treena, that we think about the economic times that we're in, right? And how fearful people are over and above coming off the COVID kind of incident. And then, some employers are saying you have to come back to work, and they're not, to your point, finding I say, what's the litmus test tell you if they don't know that litmus test. And then you put people in together and you're just thinking, well, everybody's been called back to work, blah, blah, blah. You got to do it. So really, in a way, it's almost like, people have been traumatized. and and then you're thinking, I'm just going to make them do certain things. Again, another loss of control.
Yeah.
And then you're going to come back and you're going to be nice, right? You're going to,
Yeah.
so what does that do to overall morale as well? And then, yeah,
and they just sit.
Yeah.
Right. The morale has deteriorated. I'm physically at work now, but my brain is somewhere else and I'm feeling nauseous, but I'm at work, but they're not working.
Right.
Where
Absolutely.
being, having those trauma informed communication, trauma sensitivity, just awareness, and that check-in, that actual genuine check-in, not the checky box. Right?
And it's really, and I think well, obviously we know it starts at the top. Like, in my new book, I talk a little bit about, the leadership model of I'm not being impacted, is the autocratic kind of old guard of leadership. And I'm not suggesting that, leaders share everything that's going through their life, but I talk a lot about them. Look, you're a person too, you're a leader. Yeah. You're also having impact on your life. And if you look like nothing is affecting you and all your employees around you saying, well, if Treena's not acting like anything's impacting her, therefore I then have to stifle what I am feeling. So I think that transparency around, this has been tough on all of us, and sharing a little bit about not everything, but at least being able to say, I hear you, I feel what you're going through. I've been through maybe this in this way. That really allows people to have that capacity to open up a little bit to say, yeah, I can relate, versus the leadership teams that say, oh, what's wrong? Oh, I'm just losing a limb. Everything's fine. Just being able to connect with people just on a human level as well.
Yeah. And that context, it could even be, the experience of COVID, or like the first time I know for myself, when the gyms opened up, I was excited. I go to the gym, COVID's there, you had to register, and I remember I'm sitting right here and I'm supposed to go to the gym in an hour. And then all of a sudden I'm feeling nauseous and my stomach's tightening up. Cognitively, I know I'm okay. The gym's opened up. We got the okay, there's protocol. But my body was having that trauma response because of the unsafeness that we were told for so long that the whole world experienced, right? So when the whole world, and we're all human, have experienced this, we've all come out somehow. So it's even looking organizationally, professionally, how have you individually, professionally, and in your business resiliently bounced back and are going forward? Because we have come out of it, we're still working, but can you name the traits, the examples, the environmental context of how you got through it? Right? And it's that leadership of, the humanality. I like to call it, you're moving from SOS to SRSR. Self-reflection strengthens resiliency. And whether it's personal, professional, organizational, or operational, there's a tornado. There's environmental resiliency. There's business contingency plans that are resilient. That's what resiliency is. We take the negative stuff we've experienced and how we coped and managed and worked through it for the next time stronger and better.
I like that, because, and I think, we think of it, we talk a lot about it organizationally, but I think just reflecting on it, right? Our homes became our workplaces, and, and then, whatever you're doing personally is going to be a reflection of what you do organizationally, and then also societally. So really, what you're doing impacts, I always say, 10-foot radius around you. So really kind of being responsible when you're in leadership to say, what responsibility do I need to take, and what are my blind spots, and how am I taking that time to be aware? If I'm not an anxious person to begin with, but I'm kind of, I had some friends that were very, very anxious. And at first I went, oh, and then I thought, no, stop, right? They were like that even pre-COVID. So obviously in COVID, I had one of my best friends, she brought me flowers through COVID, and she was backing up as I was coming to, I'm like, I'm not getting close to you.
I'm not going to hug you. I want to hug you, but I can't.
Right, exactly. To really kind of reflect on your space and say, what am I about? But then in turn, what do I know of others? And then how can I look at my space and how I'm impacting others? So I think that's the gift, like you said, right? Like reflection, understanding, and then kind of thinking of that overall. Now, I know we're almost at time, and I probably kept you longer than I should, Treena. For leaders that are out there and they're saying, well, we've done some stuff.
Yeah.
We've probably not too bad, but our short term's gone up, and those, arbitrations with the unions are kind of peaking up.
Mhm.
Where should they give them some things or steps that they should be reflecting on? And then I'd also like you to share where they can get a hold of you should they want to do some more work.
A good example would just be as an organization or company, is take a 6-month time frame of where you were right after COVID opened to where you are now, and calculate the costs, right? I do have a cost effective, and there are free ones online to assess the cost of conflict. So what is your retention? What is the sick leave, disability, hiring, right? What does that look like when COVID first opened up to now? Because you need to see the time, the money, what's missing to have that investment to actually want to be proactive. Because what is it going to cost you if you can't find somebody to come work for you? Or the reputation is, we came to work, but we quit because there's unresolved bullying and harassment going on, and it's visible, and word of mouth is powerful, and especially with media. So it's kind of looking at your retention, your hiring, your retirements, your sick leave, disability. What are those numbers at right now? And envisioning what is that headline in the media? What do you want that to be? Because in Ontario and cross federally, workplace violence and harassment, by law, you need to have a workplace assessment now. Mm-hmm. So what if that one complaint goes in and you haven't had that assessment, and it's been over a year since it's been in place, the new labor code law? What is the liability going to look like when an investigation comes in?
Yeah. So really to think it through and see where is my kind of scorecard. And if you've been lucky enough to not have anything happen, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But like anything else, things happen in different work environments. And some in work environments, you may not think I have to be concerned, and you never know, right?
But I think it's every work environment, because we're human, right? And human behavior, conflict does arise, and sometimes our interpersonal lives intermingle into the workplace. So even in the context of, are your policies up to date regarding cannabis, right? Medicinal cannabis in the workplace, recreational, because more and more people are seeking medicinal cannabis alternative to pharmaceutical. There's new in Ontario, the labor code law for family violence. You need to have a policy and process in place that all your employees know should somebody be experiencing family violence. So imagine the litigation and the risk and the investigation should somebody experience family violence and, God forbid, assaulted or injured severely that may cause death, and you didn't have a policy or procedure in place, or were even aware that that's now mandated in the labor code law.
Yeah.
Right. Psychological protection is just organizations educating their employees of what we have to protect you. There's no cost to that.
Absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. And I'd like you to share with people, I'm sure there's people around there kind of checking the boxes and saying, oh no, I have to go to care, I have to do this.
Yeah.
So if people were wanting to reach out and to consult or even do some work with you, Treena, where would they get a hold of you?
I am on LinkedIn under Treena Reilkoff, TLR Solutions4Conflict Inc, or my website is TLR Solutions4Conflict Inc. So you can email me, text me, call me, even if you just want a discovery call to understand it, and I can share with you a picture of even what the assessment would look like, because I'm a visual learner. So I like pictures, I like colors. So when I can see metrics with yellow to red and percentages and numbers, it gives a bigger picture and it provides me more clarity. So sometimes, just a discovery call, because become conflict curious, because it will have a return on investment, and it will also have a return on your relationships.
Awesome. Well, everyone, what am I taking away? I always learn so much every time I have someone like Treena on. I guess, what I'm recognizing is, what responsibility as leaders that people have to consider about the bounce back effect of people coming back to work or being back at work. And if you don't know, and you haven't looked at your numbers, and you haven't kind of pulled that together, that's probably a good thing to, at your next, health and wellness strategy meeting, just look at your numbers. What's your short term? What's your long term? What's your incidental absences? What's your kind of your level of productivity or presenteeism or absenteeism, like they say? I'm at work, but I'm only producing at about, say, 65%. Look at those numbers, and then, like Treena said, what is the average wage and what is the loss that you could probably calculate? And what I'll ask Treena to do is to maybe put a link in the show notes that you can probably do a basic one. And if you need more information, you can connect with her. So for my world, I am launching my book June 10th here in Niagara, and internationally on June 27th. For anyone wanting to learn more about authentic heart leadership and some of the things we're talking about today, please go to roxannedurhodge.com/book. You can pre-order your book. And, I hope that I can connect with a lot of you at the launches that are happening. Again, Treena, thanks so much for your time. And for everyone, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannedurhodge.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.